This conference will now be recorded.
The Tigers Grove Town Board will hold a public meeting beginning at 7 p.m. on Monday, November 15th, 2021 at the Town Hall, 4058 County Road N. You can also join the meeting by GoToMeeting. We have a quorum present. The meeting was posted at the Town Hall and on the website. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll stand for the flag pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the minutes of the November 1st.
I have a correction on the town board meeting, but the public hearing, I need to approve as it. Should we do it as two separate motions then? Or one with a correction?
One with the correction.
Okay. Under this table, public hearing for natural hazard mitigation strategies as is. Town board meeting with one correction on page 3 of 4, item B. The last line, motion carries 3-2. Correct, yes. I believe that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike and Steve, but I thought that the two of you voted not,
3-2, wasn't it?
It was. Right, Mike?
What, for you and I?
Yeah,
yes.
it should be.
It was just the opposite of what.
Motion
Of the
failed
motion
2-3.
above,
No,
No, the next one.
this is the next one.
Oh,
the next line.
Should have been 3-2.
yeah, it should have been 3-2, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion by Williams, second by DeClay to approve the minutes for November 1st as presented with one correction to page 3B. The very last motion carried 3-2. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Finance report, approval of bills.
That's 3.
Some expensive houses.
I'll move approval of checks 35017 through 35046 be paid.
Motion by DeClay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Anders to approve payment of checks 35017 through 35046 be paid. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. You also have your unaudited cash and investment balance of $2,165,445.35. And you have the October building permits.
I will move approval of the building permits as presented.
Motion by Anders,
Second.
second by DeClay to approve the October building permits as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
New per diems by December 3rd. That's that Friday. And then also I wanted to mention that I've been working with the court. There's a lot of outstanding debt or violations collected. And Chris wanted me to work on trying to work with her to get those collected. there's really nothing I can do to get involved in that because with her quick clerk program she works, it's directly linked to,
Dade County.
this SDC. And so she's the one that really has to initiate it. But it kind of got me wondering why nobody was ever checking on this before. Like, why has this been so many years that these collections or these violations haven't been paid? And so I contacted our auditors, and I also had Vicki talk to this woman that she's been working with in McFarland, and I asked her to ask her what she reports to her board on like a monthly basis, just so that they're more aware of it. So anyways, this is what McFarland does for their board. And I was just wondering if you guys wanted me to, now that we have a new clerk, to work with her and like I do with the building permits, add something to my reports on a monthly basis. And then I also need to get the information at year end for the auditors. So we can book it.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
So,
And it also answers some of your questions before about.
Yeah, so in other words, it has to be the court clerk to initiate the collection process
yeah,
for,
for the SDC because it's directly linked. There's some sort of I can't remember what kind of name it is, but it goes right through the internet, right to the SDC, and then it's all the information they need to go after these people. They get from her.
yeah. I think this would be nice to get that.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll also know what, what's out there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good idea, as long as you don't mind the extra work.
I don't think it'll be that much. As long as she provides me with the report and we get this initiated, I don't really know how much she's had time to really work on this. I know I've entered 3 just to see if it worked,
Mhm.
and it was fine, but I don't know what's happened since then.
Well, maybe this is something we could start first of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So our first meeting in February, you give us one of these
Yeah,
dated January.
yeah. I'm
That
hoping.
sound,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, the sooner the better. I think this is really good and helpful.
Mhm.
Yes, you get a sense for what's happening.
Right.
But can I just ask something there that doesn't this first court activities? Total revenue received was 7,000, municipality retained 4,000, Dane County 900 and 1,800 cents to the state
Yep. Every month we pay the state and the
for
county.
traffic tickets.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
they got a
Yeah,
cut
get a
of
cut.
all tickets.
Everybody gets a cut.
Well, I learned something already.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a question with regards to how far out are the payments before they actually start the collection process?
You have to 3 months. You have to send a letter to them. And then once you do that, I think you have to wait 3 months before you can send them to collections.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we're doing that, sending a letter to,
I don't know that she is right now.
When will she start?
I hope soon. Yeah. And so I guess, that's why I also want to bring this up is just, I don't, nobody's ever looked into it before. Nobody, and Cindy was doing it. I have no clue. I thought they were,
Home base.
yeah, and I also thought they got warrants for their arrest. That's what I assumed. Like, if you didn't pay that, they were gonna come after you. So I didn't have any idea.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then just one other thing. I sent an email to the county because we had our treasurer training and they had asked what people were doing for collections this year, since we're still with the pandemic and everything. And it sounds like most municipalities are going to continue with limited in-person payment, and we have to get our letter in to the tax collecting or the tax processing company by December 1st. And so we won't have another board meeting, but last year we didn't allow people to come and pay in person. So if you're still okay with that, putting it in there to try to keep people from lining up here.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, sounds like it's a good idea.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, we'll move on to public concerns, public's opportunity to speak to the town board about any subject that's not a specific agenda item. Anyone online?
Mm-hmm.
Any road right of way permit?
Two of them.
Oh,
One's a new gas hookup in lot 6 in Kennedy Hills. And then the other one down here on Rivers Road at Clark Street. The village is hooking up 1-inch water lateral. They gotta go and refile us
Yeah.
from one side to another. See any issues with either one of them? They're just going from the curb stop to curb stop. That's basically all they're doing.
Is that for their development coming in sooner or later? Or
No,
what?
it's a replace one that's under that's no good.
Really just letting the town residents hook up to their water
Oh, John?
instead of drilling a new well.
Okay.
They said there's one that runs under there, but they can't use that or something, so they have to run.
But they're gonna remain in the town.
Yeah.
Right? That'll cost a pretty penny, I would think.
I don't know so much about that. I just think it's the ongoing bills every month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah, same thing.
and they pay for the hookup too, so
Yeah.
the resident, like all the people up in Gaston did.
Wonder what the break-even point's gonna be, how far down the road versus new well versus, a replacement well versus a hookup.
Well, they
to
don't get the
village.
sewer charge, I was told, so I mean,
What's that?
they
Yeah.
don't get the
They
sewer
don't.
charge, so it can't cost that much. I wouldn't
Motion
think.
to approve.
Second,
Huh? Both of them.
second.
Motion by Anders, second by Fonger to approve both right of way permits for Wisconsin Power and Light and Monona Plumbing and Fire. As presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
So I did forget to put the police report on the agenda. I see Christina's here. I don't know if you wanna take a minute to talk to her or skip it or what. I do have the reports that came this afternoon.
Pass out the reports and we'll do it under
public concern.
board reports. I'm reporting, the police department has been here in Hampton, and Christine will tell us anything new.
Yeah, so, not really much. It's most of our calls for service, again, still are traffic. The majority of the traffic violations typically come down to speeding. I still have noticed that it's kind of decreased since the construction has moved on. But really, other than that, there's nothing that really stands out as being different. Do you guys have any questions, concerns?
We have an item on our agenda tonight to consider replacing speed bumps on Damascus Trail with stop signs in 2022. Any thoughts you'd like to share?
So I guess, I don't know
Where would you put them?
that,
You know what I mean?
I guess is sort of my thought originally.
I still think it's a bad idea.
I honestly probably have to sit on it a little bit and think about it when I'm sitting there, speed bumps versus stop signs to have more of an opinion. If I'm being honest with you, I don't want to speak prematurely and throw something out there that people are going to cling to and hold me to it. I have felt the speed bumps do a pretty good job. Between the speed bumps and the turns, it can be kind of tricky to get your speed up unless you're pretty determined. But I do also understand that when you live on the street it's different. I don't live on the street. I don't have the opinion of a resident who lives there. So I don't have to deal with the same thing people might feel they're dealing with every day. So my opinion might differ a little bit on how effective I think it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No, keep up the good work.
And I can chill on the road a little bit and I guess play with the idea of the stop sign and where they might be and let you guys know what I think about it next month too. I'd be more
Sure.
than happy, because then at least gives me some time to think and
Yeah.
actually really,
Ask Brian.
Everyone,
and Jen
yeah,
their
yeah.
opinions and, yeah.
and I'm always more than happy to do that. So, and I can keep a little running list of notes and run it past the other deputies. You guys know Jen, she loves to chat, so I'm sure I could get a few opinions from her and you would too. So
Okay.
that shouldn't be an issue.
And
Okay.
obviously, we're talking about one person sent a message.
I know,
You're right.
and that's the thing that the speed bumps work. And I, like I said, I'm anti-stop signs because I live on Nightingale.
They
So
don't always stop. do they?
They don't always stop.
Oh yeah, we've gotten complaints of people just rolling through
Yeah.
there and, it's a good place to sit and
I know,
watch.
Nothing's perfect.
I understand that as well, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I guess it's the catch-22, no matter what you do, people
yeah.
do wrong things or make mistakes all the time. So I don't know if stop signs would be worth replacing for the bumps.
Are there speed bumps out now?
They're taken off right now. So,
I don't know when you might plow snow now.
That's right.
I received more calls this year on noise.
You want to talk about that under the right agenda item?
Yeah.
sorry guys.
Sorry. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Yeah, anything else before I? No?
No.
We'll get somebody.
Yeah, go hand out some non-stop signs.
Yeah, that'll be my agenda.
Okay,
All right, you guys have a good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is review the latest draft of intergovernmental agreement with the City of Madison, discuss and consider next steps. And we have Brian and Jeff online, I believe.
I'm gonna make Brian the presenter.
Okay.
You want to start?
You're gonna go over the-
You're gonna go over it?
yeah, and then we'll have time for questions.
Should I?
Yep, go ahead and share your screen and if you got a PowerPoint or whatever you're gonna do.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So yes, good evening, everyone. Apologies. Yeah, myself here, Brian Grady from the City of Madison Planning Division, also my colleague Jeff Greger. We were both at the October 6th public hearing at the town hall there on this topic. Apologies for not being there in person, which is easier, but fortunate to be here virtually this evening. And so Jeff and I, working with our colleagues in the City of Madison Attorney's Office, have put together this full document, a full draft of a potential intergovernmental agreement, or IGA. This expands on the outline, the one-page outline that we discussed previously. And yes, it's a bit longer. So now it's about maybe 7 pages plus some signature pages there. So it's expanded. And so I want to just kind of run through here a few of the highlights, things I want to emphasize, and then I'll just turn it back to the board here. I assume folks can see my screen here. I'm looking at just a Word doc. This is not very exciting, but I see it's posted on the town's agenda here, and then the map that goes along with this is the same map that we've had at previous meetings. So just a few highlights here. This first page here, the whereas, this is just a governmental document. Town board's very familiar with things like this. A legislative piece of legislation, basically, some background, but it has a whereas section, which is basically lays the foundation for what this IGA would do and kind of some of the why behind it. I'm not going to go into detail here, but overall it just describes this agreement would seek to provide more certainty for both the town and the city, and that overall Basically what this is doing is Madison gained some certainty on development activities that happen in this blue area here, area A, and we would not be able to annex land. Basically, again, property owner driven annexation request, but the city cannot expand beyond this blue line here. And then that provides some relief to the town and some other areas in terms of our ETJ. And so we're calling it here basically an interim boundary line. An interim you might think of as being like a week or a few month thing. This is in this IGA, it's a 40-year term we have on here. Interim here is for 40 years. What the city has, the town have a 5.5 mile long boundary along here, and so we have a lot of area in common, and there will be some some interrelated items that will come across. Certainly, we hope this IGA, if it were approved by both the town and the city, can provide a good foundation for ongoing cooperation. Two things here. Two things that the town board discussed at the meeting on November 1st. One clarification from the city on was one, the annexations and just kind of detailing out what was the kind of not clarified in our one-page outline of the IGA, that property owners need to be contiguous. They need to touch the city, so they need to be adjacent to these yellow areas to be able to ask the city to come into the city. And so a property owner that's over here on the edge, not touching the city, cannot come into the city. It needs to be contiguous. The city only can expand outwards if it's growing out of our existing geography. And so property owners, again, seek annexation. That's how the process works. They would need to touch the city to be able to petition the city to come into the city. And so we have a lot of this still relies on state law, but we have described in here that this is it's a petition request for property owners to come into the city. The question also came up about smaller properties, maybe the concern there getting swept in. And so let me just zoom in a little bit. This discussion last 2 weeks ago was regarding some of the properties up here at Gaston, at the corner of Gaston, where the Gaston curve is here, getting swept in. And so if other property owners wanted to come into the city, could they get kind of looped in? And again, that's something that we don't typically see. We haven't done an annexation like that, haven't accepted one like that in the last 15 years plus. But we have included in here language in this first sections here that allows town islands to be created. And so this is all very complicated. But basically what we hope to do here with that language is provide more certainty to town property owners, where it's a person with a house on 3 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres, where it might be, that they could just stay in the town and not get swept into the city. And so again, we're emphasizing that you need to touch the city to ask to come into the city. And you can stay if annexation, people that are asking for annexation don't want to sweep another property, they would not have to do that. So here we could create town islands, trying to again reinforce that. I don't know if we've completely solved the concerns of some of the folks, but one thing that we're more happy to do is talk with folks that have concerns. We can show parts of the city where properties that are small properties that have homes on them just stay in the town until a very long time. So we've tried to help emphasize that a bit. The next question, clarification that was sought at the November 1st board meeting was the 5 acre plus provision. And so there's, basically we're saying that in this area A, in this blue area here, if you have 5 acres or more, then you could either add a house or create 2 homes if you have the right acreage to properties in this area A, and that would happen through the town/county process, would not go through the city process. Because we had some overlapping, kind of our outline provision kind of had some overlap and conflict with the town's policy. We've added some wording here to help get those two ideas in sync. And so the section here under 3C gets a little wordy, but tries to just spell it out a little more. We had some discussion at the October 6th public hearing. There was a property owner that has 80 acres. Question was, can I add 1 home or 2 homes? Basically, what I'll just kind of summarize this briefly. If there's 1 home that exists, you can add a 2nd home. If there's 0 homes, you can add 1 home. If there's 0 homes, you can add 2 homes. If all these factors meet up, basically, again, the city's waiving our review of this would happen through a town county process. What we have described here, though, is more describing what the town's policies are in terms of maximum lot size and also lot clustering. And so we've described this all where you need to still maintain, because of the rest of the town, in terms of the maximum lot size, the lot clustering, and then we've also talked about that residential development unit that's required in most cases, that would also be required. And so here, trying to sync those 2 up, but that's the idea. If you have the acreage, the ability to add a home or 2. If you have 0 homes, you can add 1. 0 homes, you can add 2. If you have 1 home, you could add a second. As we look through this area, some of these larger property owners may want to do this opportunity to add a home or 2. So the larger property owners may just look to kind of keep the property as is, and maybe at some point ask to annex into the city of Madison, and then at some point in the future, once all the conditions are met, develop in the city. But again, the opportunity is out there. The other items in here are all, again, just very similar to what was in the outline in terms of the area B. The city likes to keep this in our comprehensive plan as a long-term growth area. The comp plan looks out many decades. Just keep that as a long-term growth area. There's no really provisions for that other than that. And then some of the other items here, again, we're waiving ETJ, cooperating open space corridors, amend our respective comp plans if the town were to approve this and the city were to approve this. And then one last item here I want to highlight is future boundary agreements here under section, sorry for scrolling here, but section 3H. Basically what this says is basically what this agreement would do is we have the town and the city work more cooperatively based on this area, kind of work more collaboratively. What this says is that if the town were to entertain discussions with the village of Cottage Grove or the village of McFarland regarding a cooperative plan, or a consolidation agreement, which is basically a consolidation is emerging. A cooperative plan can take different forms, but if the town were to enter discussions with the village of Cottage Grove, village of McFarland, that they would inform the city of Madison, include us in those discussions. And then it says the exact opposite of that, which is if the city of Madison entertains discussions with the village of Cottage Grove or village of McFarland, that we would also inform the town and involve the town in those discussions. And so basically the whole idea is under this IGA, if it's approved by both municipalities, that we would just basically try to row in the same direction in terms of this area. So again, it gets a little longer than the 1-page outline, but hopefully it adds a little more detail. And I guess I'll stop sharing there if I can figure out how to stop sharing and turn it back to the board.
Thanks, Brian. Are there questions from the town board?
Yeah, I got one right on the front page there. The Cottage Grove desires to protect lands from being annexed against the owner's wishes. I thought it was up to the owners. It had nothing to do with Madison.
Which whereas we,
It's just, I got that one too. It's the third from the bottom.
Under the on the first page here, yeah, let me just find it real quick.
Cottage Grove desires to protect lands from being annexed against the owner's wishes. And Madison desires to prevent new development west of the interim boundary line, which does not conform to city development standards.
Yeah, and so that
Missed the point there, because that's what everybody was arguing about. That Madison could take property. Now, actually, what you're saying there sort of leads you to believe they can.
Yeah, what we're trying to convey there is it was the concern of the folks that had, a few acres, whether it's a few acres, 10, 20 acres, that they're worried about getting swept in. We just wanted to acknowledge that concern, that they do not, those folks that express that concern do not want to get annexed into Madison against their wishes. And so that again is why we added what we see. And if you want, I can pull up the outline of the city boundary to show some examples, but overall, folks that want to come in the city, ask the city, they come in. And what this does though is, again, those folks that do not want to come in can stay in the town. And we would also, if the town board is interested, we even could entertain the creation of town islands, which again solidifies the fact that folks that do not want to come in to the city could stay in the city and they would remain a town island, basically.
Isn't that how Blooming Grove got all screwed up and you know, just,
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
I don't understand that.
Blooming Grove?
Blooming Grove gave everything to them.
But not originally. They were all,
Prior to that. Yeah.
but they had tons of
It's got-
little blurbs, and I kept wondering, how is that possible? I couldn't understand how they could do
No, I
that. But
agree.
I can remember back in the day when I used to volunteer all over the county for ambulance services. We would go from, where I was working through the city to a township, through the city to the township in order to get the call. It's just,
But my
it's
point,
kind of weird.
my point is just the comment against the owner's wishes.
Mike, that's a whereas statement, which is
I understand that.
one of the reasons why you want to have this agreement is to protect lands from being annexed against the owner's wishes. That's the point of that.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Well, it's.
What this is saying, desires to protect lands from being annexed against the owner's wishes.
Right.
Yeah. Because further on in, then we give them the option to create an island if they want to, so that they don't have to be forced in.
But how's that gonna affect
3D.
your plowing and everything?
Well, it's
What it
not
means is
necessarily-
that if that homeowner doesn't want to be annexed, he doesn't have to be, they stay in the town of Cottage Grove, even though if the road's annexed in the city of Madison, they're still a resident of the town of Cottage Grove.
It sort of leads me to believe that Madison could annex against the owners now unless this is signed, and I'm going, wow, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it just doesn't to me,
They
it leads me to believe that Madison could do it if they wanted to.
They could get swept in without this, without that island.
So what they're saying is they won't be the good neighbor and do the same thing, whether there's an agreement or not. The only way they will not do it is if there's an agreement. Another blackmail attempt.
That's what it
I
looks
mean,
like
I'm
to me.
using that a very strong word, just like the whole eastern delineation of this area A is just, it's because they want it, meaning the city. If you don't like it, walk away. If you want it, do what the city says and go from there.
I take it just like he just said, that they can do it, but if we sign this, they won't do it. I didn't think they could. Everything we talked about is it's up to the owner of the property if they want to go into Madison.
The only-
Current state law says you could be dragged in. If of 3 parcels, 2 parcels want to go
This-
and they can drag the third
This
one
doesn't
in.
talk about any, this does not talk about that. This one little whereas does not say that.
But if you go inside.
Yeah, I got
0.3
that.
Okay.
Then why do we need that comment here?
It's just a whereas.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
They added it because they heard the concerns of the citizens, that's why they added it.
If we can.
My sense was that it was written in response to what Mr. Graber has been saying, that he doesn't want to be dragged in.
Correct, but if you were a good neighbor, i.e. the city of Madison, would you put something, we're gonna potentially do it if you don't sign this agreement? Say, we'll take Mr. Kelsey, for example, okay? He's the property across the street from, or down the road from Mark's Farm, and then also kitty corner across the street from the Century Farm there. I forget his.
If we don't sign this, they could do that.
Correct, and I guess why,
Because it's.
Why are we-
It's for 50 years.
no. What I'm saying is, why would they not be a good neighbor and just not do that? Well, again, we'll use the Kelsey situation, okay? If Marx's wants to go into the city and, I'm sorry about his name, across the street, all right. We know now that the city does not have to take Kelsey's, but they will tell us that they won't take Kelsey's against his will unless we sign the document.
Because today they might say that they wouldn't take it, but in 20 years, maybe.
20, I mean, 20 years
And
is,
they would take. it. Right? Administrations change.
yes. I mean, the laws change. I mean, you could say state statutes could change in 20 years. Not that I believe it, but I'm just saying, there's so many what ifs and how to's and wherefores that could possibly change that wouldn't affect this document, whether it's signed or not. You know, that, again, I guess, you know, we're doing, or I should say, you guys are potentially going to do what the city of Madison says when they say it. And if you don't, you get to feel the consequences. It's like this ogre sitting out there, and I mean, I'm getting kind of strong on this.
Yeah, you are.
I have very much so, because of the fact that unless we do exactly what they say, we'll potentially gobble you all up. Instead of being a good neighbor and relying on the wishes of everybody involved, not just the big property owners.
But if you look at 3A, the second paragraph, lands may be annexed to Madison under this agreement, irrespective of size or shape. Such annexations may create town islands. Madison, however, may reject. Madison must provide adequate timely service. Madison is authorized to confer with landowners interested in annexation to recommend. So they're gonna go in and confer with people who want to come into Madison? Landowners in Cottage Grove?
Madison.
Well, you get what I'm saying?
If they reach out to them, yeah.
If the landowner reaches out and talks to them about annexation.
Yeah, but I'm not reading it from somebody, it's not saying that this person wants to annex in. Now we're gonna go confer with them. It says can confer with them. It doesn't say if they annex, if they want to be annexed.
It says Madison is authorized to confer with landowners interested in annexation.
That's my point. I don't want them talking to people in the town. How do we know they're gonna be talking without us even involved? Like the village has done to us.
They never talk to us. No, if they annex.
Good point.
There's no reason that they have to talk to us.
That's, I guess not.
Do you have more?
On E, on, I guess 3E.
3E,
3E.
extraterritorial.
Madison waives its extraterritorial review authority to the east of the interim boundary line. East of the line?
Yeah,
So that's to the other side of the blue, towards Cottage Road.
right, to the east. Toward North Star Road.
Okay. Let me go to another one here to
Okay.
see what he
Which
was
one?
talking about. C in the middle here. And lot clustering policy for resident lots, land under contiguous ownership may be divided into 3 parcels. Is that what he said? I didn't get that when he was talking there. To 3 parcels. So you could have your house
You
and then you
have
could
your
put 2 more.
house, You could build, if there's already a house there, you could build 1 more house. We want to cluster them, and so that leaves that 3rd parcel that would be deed restricted for no further development.
Because our residences cannot be no more than 2 acres, there's probably always going to be a residual. And that
Well, it's
would,
gonna be a
Something
big
left
amount. Yeah, I understand that.
that would be your 3rd parcel, is that residual.
Yeah,
But I thought from the beginning, it was always 2 total with the house it was on. That's what you had said, which they said, no, that wasn't true.
total of 2 houses.
If there's no, they can build two. If there's one, they could only build one more.
It's a maximum of 2 single-family homes.
Okay, so what is the three, are you saying, what is 3 parcels then?
Because
Yeah,
if you had 10 acres.
Okay, so you're saying you could build one and the rest is gonna be deed restricted or
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
left over, because
There's gonna be only 2.
only 2 residential
Okay,
parcels, but whatever is left is a third parcel. Just
But they
'cause-
have to touch.
Yeah, it's all
Right.
contiguous ownership, yes, continuous ownership.
So yeah, so on that provision, in our other agreements we have in other town areas, you can create 2 lots total, but to here, it says, again, to sync up with the town policy, we're indicating you can provide 3 total parcels. This just facilitates consistency with town policy. We try to modify that to accommodate the town in the situation here.
2 residential parcels and 1 deed restricted residual parcel, if that's what it takes to divide it.
And it's, yeah, so overall, our intent here was to, again, hearing the feedback that the town board heard, we tried to accommodate, try to acknowledge and also accommodate some of that feedback. And so the intent here is not to make this more restrictive than the outline. If we feel that we've actually made some adjustments to improve it based on the feedback that was heard.
Do you have any more, Mike?
that was enough.
I do have one question. Regarding any future boundary agreements with either the village of Cottage Grove or the village of McFarland, what happens when, with your purple delineation on area B, actually is cutting some parcels, I'll say in half. I don't know if it's exactly in half, but it's actually cutting them up compared to their existing size. What happens in a situation like that? If you go directly east from looks to be about a 40 or maybe even a 30 acre parcel that's owned currently by the village of McFarland. If you go straight east from that parcel, your line comes down and cuts the adjacent parcel, cuts into the adjacent parcel. I'll just let go with that.
Yeah, I think overall we try to follow parcel lines. There's probably a few cases where we're not, but really this area B, all this provision is that it says, the city of Madison would change would have its comp plan reflect this agreement if the town approves it and the city approves it. And so area B would just stay in our comp plan as a long-term growth area, but in our comp plan, may or may not even show land uses. It might just say, hey, it's just a signal, which the comp plan's, supposed to do, signal where you may want to grow in the future. And so I don't think it really matters if it cuts parcels or not. It would just say that area B would remain a long-term growth area that the city may have some interest in. And that's really a signal to look out many decades, basically. And so there's no other details associated with that, I guess. So maybe if there's any certain questions you have with area B, but overall, it just is our request to keep it in our comp plan as a long-term growth area.
Does that mean if the village of McFarland wants it, they're gonna have to negotiate with Cottage Grove or the city of Madison? Or both?
It's both, really. Yeah, I mean, if in that area, if the town wanted to reach an agreement with the village there, we would like to be involved. And if the city of Madison was discussing that with Village of McFarland in that area, then the town would be involved. It's trying to keep the city and the town, again, kind of rowing in the same direction and collaborating, because in many cases we have the same interests. And I think in this area we have the town and the city have compatible interests.
So what would happen currently if that property owner, because of the fact that she basically abuts the city of Verona, the village of McFarland right now, and this agreement were to be in effect, that there would be another fight like you had previously with McFarland over lands that, you know, are,
That's what,
that would possibly involve the township becoming a party to, you know, in the event that, say, her entire parcel, she wants to go to McFarland versus the city. Is that going to become an issue for the township?
Yeah, so basically, if it's in the purple, let's say it's one of the parcels in the purple there, the city of Madison cannot, under this agreement, could not accept an annexation request to go beyond the blue line. And so city of Madison could not accept a petition to go past the blue lines. So that's what the agreement says. And then if they wanted to go to the village of McFarland, they would, just like in other cases, they would need to be contiguous to the village of McFarland. They would need to ask. Yeah, they need to ask the village, you know, village, can we annex to the village? And the village would decide if they want to say yes or no, if they want to have that property in their community and serve it with the village services. And so this agreement does not change state law. If a property is adjacent to the village of McFarland and someone petitions to annex to the village can say yes. And then the north end of the map, if people are adjacent to the village of Cottage Grove at some point, they're not, this line, our line doesn't come up next to the village now, but if a property wanted to annex to the village, they could ask the village of Cottage Grove and the Cottage Grove could say yes. That doesn't change state law. But what this basically says is that we won't go past the blue line basically over 40 years. And then if both parties agree, it would auto renew for another 10 years. The interesting situation, again, the complexity gets brought up with the town of Blooming Grove case is that stair step area that went into McFarland, just south of Yahara Hills Golf Course, that odd stair step, thank you for highlighting that. That was in the paper. That was the subject of a lawsuit because it was basically it was an untested case. It was that we created a cooperative plan. The town of Blooming Grove, St. Madison created a cooperative plan. We had an agreement with the village of McFarland. That agreement expired. Our line was Silicow Road. That expired. The village of McFarland then annexed north of Silicow into Blooming Grove land that was subject to the cooperative plan. The city thought we had a strong case that the cooperative plan's language and state law sided with us. The village of McFarland wanted to annex that, and they won. And so that was a very unique case where there was, I think, I'm not an expert in this all, but I don't think much legal precedent there, but the village of McFarland won. But that was a whole different deal. That was a cooperative plan where land is designated under a cooperative plan to go to a city, and it's to a city. It's automatically transferred to a city. Under the IGA that is before you all is under a separate section of state statute. It does not transfer land automatically. It basically just sets a boundary line which we would not annex. We would not accept annexation petitions to go beyond that line. It doesn't transfer land automatically like in Blooming Grove. It sets a boundary line that we would not go past again. But again, annexations are driven by property owner requests. We don't annex land, property owners request to annex land.
This is going to be approved by the Madison City Council, correct?
That's correct. It would need to be approved by both municipalities for it to be approved, yeah.
Okay. I don't see the City Council of Madison looking at this document the way he does. I think he's a good man. I think he's the two guys that are talking to us they've got their act together. I don't agree that the Madison City Council is going to say the same. I think there's ambiguous things in here.
Questions?
no, I'm fine.
Brian, the only thing I want to bring up is in 3A, where you're talking about sanitary sewer or water services. We have areas in the town that the village owns that stayed in the town, and they put pumping stations and water towers on. So
That's that provision we've included in some of our other agreements. Basically, And it kind of, a good example here, again, this is very long-term. You can see the city boundary now, but much of the blue line follows the Door Creek corridor, which we wanted to follow that because that's a space where there's a lot of wetland and floodplain, and you can't do much in either municipality. And so hopefully it's kind of a neutral area. And so we have the line going along the Door Creek corridor for a good chunk of that. But it's also the Door Creek corridor as a low point could be a good spot for, say, like a sanitary interceptor, whether it was a city interceptor or an MMSD sanitary interceptor. And so if there was a part there where, maybe a lift station was located along the Door Creek corridor and it was, I don't know, a 5-acre property, the city bought it to locate a lift station. That is the one exception that would allow the city to go past the blue line. The agreement says that if the city owns land on the other side of the line, that we could annex that, but that can only be used for utilities to serve development in Area A. Yeah, that sounds like you've had some similar situations, and that's really the main thing, because that blue line goes along the Door Creek corridor, which is where you would likely put an interceptor. And sometimes things can happen on both sides of that line. But again, that'd be a small lift station type, maybe a water tower for water infrastructure. Obviously, it's gonna be up to, where's the best place to locate things. But I guess if you all have, concerns about that provision, let us know. And so overall, we're posing this language to the town and would love, again, more feedback.
You knew that you didn't have to annex it. You could still put facilities there like the village does to us. And we
Sure, yeah,
provide
maybe.
services,
Yeah, so that could be another
no taxes.
another outcome. Yeah, you're right. Without having to annex the property.
Yeah. Okay.
So our lawyer has not seen this yet.
No, that would probably be our next step. Randy Graver, wish to speak against?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple questions. I know Brian's on the line as well. First of all, on 3B, if you could give me a definition of what a principal structure is.
Sounds good. A principal, our overall, so yeah, 3B gets a little wordy, but we tried to make it as clear as possible. Yeah, so there's reference to principal structure in 3B and 3C regarding the 1 or 2 homes. A principal structure is the primary use, and so a house is a principal structure. A garage is a secondary structure, and so in the case of 3B here, where development refers to the construction of more than one principal structure on a parcel, what might come into play there is if there's a main structure already on a property, could be a house, could be a business, that you can't add a second principal structure on that building. So you can add a second house on that lot or a second business on that lot. That's what that refers to there.
Okay, does not prohibit the landowner to putting an agricultural building on that, correct?
An egg building is generally a secondary structure. A business where people work in, or a house people live in, those are principal structures. Accessory are accessory to the principal use. So a garage is accessory to a principal use of a house. A farm outbuilding, whether it's a barn or a milk house, is an accessory structure to a principal structure. The overall idea there is just, it's not very common. Really, there's probably some Dane County zoning requirements that would also trip this up, but it just doesn't allow like 2 houses to be built in a lot, or if you have a business, you can't add a second building. You couldn't add a second primary building on that lot. So that's a development thing. And again, there's probably some things that would also catch these items under Dane County zoning. It's a provision we've used in other areas, and so we want to just be consistent. We found it to be useful, I guess.
Okay, so when hearing this agreement does not prohibit the construction of a pole barn, agricultural building or something like that, correct?
It does not, as long, there's always that caveat, got to meet town and county regulations, but no, that's not what this would.
The second thing, you talked about that this allows the creation of islands, but you mentioned that they're smaller parcel islands. To what extent are you allowing those islands to be created in terms of size?
No maximum size shown, and And so two things. One, the city and village boundaries can get pretty creative in terms of keeping folks in the town and still not creating a town island. It's more so a big, I mean, you can get pretty creative. And so again, if you look at the city boundary, you'll see some pretty creative edges to avoid town islands. Here, we've had the provision that you can create town islands and there's no size maximum on town islands. And so it could be 5 acres, it could probably be 100 acres if there enough area annexed to the city, no maximum size.
Great, thank you. The rest of mine is gonna be a comments, and I'll make one request at the end. Is I'm not gonna go into all the reasons why I don't feel that this fairly represents all the residents of the town. I was here the last 2 meetings. I think I've gone to the utmost effort to try to explain that to you. And you know, how this impacts everybody in Area A. And if I'm being honest with you, and with all due respect, I don't feel as if my concerns or the concerns of other people who oppose this were actually heard by the board. Instead, what I saw, what I heard was people being defensive, being argumentative, raising their voices. I'm out in the community now. I have people come up to me knowing that I'm here. They watch it online and they're making comments about how our board, instead of listening, is standing there and arguing with the people who are bringing something up. With the exception, Mr. Supervisor Anders, I do appreciate the fact that you made a motion at the last meeting to try to give this more time. I don't understand what the rush is of all this, but if I'm being honest with you, I don't feel as if coming here to this that our concerns, and I'll speak for me, my concerns were actually heard by the board. I wasn't trying to come in here and say absolutely oppose it. I was trying to explain philosophically why this was not in line with what the town survey said, and certainly my interest as a person who lives in A, and anybody else that's represented in A. And I believe that in an earlier meeting, somebody made a comment about, or I think they asked the question, do any of you live in Area A? And the answer to that was no. And none of you live in Area A. So if that's the case, I think it's safe to say that this agreement benefits all of you personally. And I think there is a conflict of interest there. And at a minimum, I would think that, and this is my request, put it out to the town residents in a referendum. Ask them what they think about it. Truly represent the town by asking them to vote on this in a referendum. I don't even care if it's a non-binding referendum. At least like the survey, which you did get the results of that, and the survey results were very clear where they stood on the area of annexation. But yet we're still pushing this forward to get this done. We've heard the city say that the utilities are probably not going to be out here for 10 to 20 years. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Anders. I don't know what's going to happen from them. The laws can change, councils can change, the town board will change. Who knows what's going to happen then? But we seem to be in this long, quick rush to get this thing through. At the expense, and I'll say it again, of the people who live in A.
And Randy, you're here alone today with your wife. You're here alone.
Now, there's quite a few people online. I don't know.
Well, and you know, and my thing that I say that is, and again, you're making a big assumption, Mike. People have jobs, they have commitments, they have kids, they have things that they have to do. And maybe they're watching this online and say, well, I don't know why I would go there. I'm going to get chastised by my town board if I bring this up. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate why they're here, why I'm the only one here. But I'm certainly entitled to my opinion as a town resident.
Absolutely.
And that's what these forums are for. So don't ask me why I'm the only one here. That is irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant, but it
is irrelevant.
It's your point, okay?
And if I could add, this is Maureen Gaber, I'm Randy's wife, obviously. You know, you did put out the survey and you got the results back that were completely ignored. So if you don't listen to your constituents, the system is broken. You're just going through the motions.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not for this, okay? So.
But what's the purpose of the survey, I guess? I don't understand why the survey was even done if you're not going to listen to the results.
Well, we're talking about 36 square miles. We're not just talking about your little corridor there. I mean, I think it should be a referendum.
Yeah, I mean, the people in Zone A, I think we feel like stepchildren. I mean, we're all part of the town, but boy, we sure don't feel that way.
Kim, can you ask if there's anybody else online?
There are people online. Button here. Here, I'll quit sharing. Hold on. Give the people online.
Any of those have questions?
Are you here for different things, or you know any of those people or any? They're on there.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
This is Robert Williamson speaking. I guess I've listened to this last month when it was on. My feeling is the people in the blue area are taking this as it's being shoved down their throat, which I don't think it is. And I don't really think they're listening to what is actually going to happen. They're just opposed to it and not open to listening and hearing. That's my opinion. I don't live there. We've got land that is in that A group in the blue. But from everything I've heard, I don't understand why people wouldn't be for this. Other than they just don't like Madison and think Madison is a bully and whatever. And I don't necessarily, I've got some concerns with Madison on some things we're trying to do too, but I don't think people are really listening and trying to hear what is really trying to be done. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would just also, I think, when Brian talks about it's rare that they would sweep people into the city, I think it's the potential is absolutely there. I mean, if you drive down Violet's Hope Road, there's all sorts of empty farmland there. And it just takes a couple people to want to come in, and then, the third person gets swept in, and before you know it, you're going to have no offense to Viridian, but you're going to have a development there like Viridian. So I think the town board owes it to the town, to preserve as much farmland as they can, and to actually, again, listen to your constituents.
We can't preserve farmland. The landowner has to do that.
Right, I understand that, but there's talk about, well, you can't come into the city unless you ask them, and that's not 100% true. I mean, they can sweep you in, and it may be decades down the road, but this town board has the opportunity right now to take action to preserve what you can. You see the maps, you see the city is, this is the outgrowth. I mean, you can just see it happening, and it's going to happen.
But with this agreement, we're allowing them not to force you in, that you have the out, that they could create that island, that you stay in the town and everybody else around you goes in.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I still think, it's the city. It's kind of, no offense to Brian, but, there's things that they can do. And if you have 20, 30 acres, I mean, I know he talks about 100, but I mean, you see it happening with Blooming Grove. You just see it, all over with the towns.
See what they did? They broke up that area into these little areas that were still in the towns.
Right.
Until the point that the government couldn't run anything anymore. They didn't have any money to run anything.
Right, I understand Blooming Grove.
And that's why I'm against having these tiny little spots. That's a start, just like you basically said, it's a start. All of a sudden, to me, then Madison gets more power. And when we start doing that kind of stuff, I just don't.
Blooming Grove didn't have any line that Madison couldn't go beyond, so they were reaching further all over the town doing that, where this would set a stopping point.
Yeah, I'd ask each one of you to consider our position. Put yourself living in Zone A. I mean, really think about if you would be for this, if that was the case.
How would you be taken into Madison without your own approval?
Just let it go.
Well, I mean, just tell me. I'd like to know.
Well, yeah,
We've hashed this thing over.
Well, I know, but
I
you see
understand with the annexation.
You're thinking everybody around you, you're gonna get all your neighbors. They're gonna surround
I
you.
understand that, Mike.
Well, that's what you
You know,
said
and
last time
the
you were here.
gentleman online, that he doesn't live here. He's trying to develop his land that's here. So I get people have different perspectives, and their opinions are based upon what they're trying to do. What we're trying to do is preserve where we live and the land around us and the properties around us. I understand annexation law. I know that they can come in, I can request to go into the city because my borders touches the city of Madison now. I understand the whole island rule. I'll be honest with you, I appreciate the fact that the city has made efforts to say, okay, if we create islands, that's okay, because they don't like to do that. I appreciate the fact that they're saying if you've got some smaller or some larger parcels, larger than 5 or 10 or 7 acres, I appreciate that as well. The fact of the matter is to me, this is a philosophical approach to, do we want to start to, as a board and as a township, to say, we don't mind that if the city wants to annex all this stuff in, we're not going to protest we're not going to support any development there. We're not, all the things that this agreement says.
How though, you said, you want them to preserve the land around you, not enter into this agreement, but how do you think they can preserve anything without this agreement? How can they protect you?
How can who protect me?
The town, how can the town protect you?
I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can. I don't know
That's
that you guys
exactly
can.
our point. We don't
My
have
point
that.
is that you're saying that if
We
you go
don't-
back there and say all the things that the town is not going to do. You're not going to support development. You're not going to support attachment to the village of McFarland or the village of Cottage Grove. All those things that you said you're not going to do, you're going to basically say hands off. The town is saying that. In exchange for this boundary agreement of the eastern part of everybody in the blue, that they don't come any further. That's what you're saying. And that feels us isolated and basically thrown to the wolves of the city of Madison. I get what they can do. But as a town, you heard your constituents say, we don't want to be annexed. We want to preserve farmland. At least say that as a statement. What's the hurry in doing this? What do we get from it? We get the ETJ. That's all we get out of this.
You know where our boundary will be with them.
I understand you want to live on your land and you want the rights to do whatever you want with your land and be where you are and be happy there, period.
Mhm.
And I think you have that ability to do that.
I have a question.
I hope you do anyway.
This is a question I've been thinking about for weeks. If nothing becomes of all of our discussions here over the last several meetings and stuff, and the situation stays status quo, okay? If, say, your neighbors would be to the north, would be on the west side of Violet Oak, decide to petition for annexation into the city, okay? All right. And it looks like, God forbid, that maybe you might be somehow sucked in. I personally don't think it because you have across the street that's still in the township, so you're not surrounded. But anyway, what would you expect the town to do, barring any of all this here, if the situation stays status quo, other than to write a letter saying, please don't? We have nothing else we can do. There is nothing, we can't go up to the Capitol, tell the legislature to change the law because we don't like villages and cities annexing our land. I won't even say the city of Madison right now. We have nothing other than to go ahead and write a nice letter expressing our concerns and our disapproval. That's it. We have nothing else that we can offer you, as hard as we could try, because we have nothing statutorily to back us up.
And there's power in that. There's power in the town board to write a letter or to show up at a city council meeting to say, we oppose this.
Which we do for every annexation.
And that's, and like you said, we don't know what's going to change. We don't know what kind of city council is going to be seated at that time. We don't know if it's going to have any impact at all. But at least you're making a statement that you disagree with that annexation, that you philosophically want to preserve the farmland. So yes, the town board could actually write a letter and say, we oppose this. Even though you have no power, even though they'll come back and say, thanks a lot, appreciate your time.
We do it already.
We do that right now. We did it with
What this is saying now, this agreement says you will no longer do that. This agreement
Every
says you will no
annexation,
longer do that.
every annexation from the village of Cottage Grove and from, if I recall
Has been
correctly, correct me if I'm wrong,
McFarland.
the village of McFarland, we've done that, and it has absolutely,
I understand.
it's a feel good, it's a touchy feely kind of thing. You know, I mean,
So what do you expect us to do then?
I mean,
we can say
really,
that right
I
now.
wish I could help. I really do. But short of writing a letter, I mean, it's,
Short of writing a letter and going on record as the town board opposes the annexation of the property in question, which you've done, and I hear what you're saying. It hasn't done you any good, but then so you're going to stop doing it. Instead, you're just going to say, okay, everybody in A, we're no longer going to support you in these ways because it specifically says you're not going to.
Because they've already made the choice. They want to annex.
Some probably will, some probably won't.
And those that don't get drug in. They can stay in that island if it's an island.
But who's to say that the Madison City Council looks at that whole little document and says, well, man, I don't like this one, and they vote no. And they, by what I'm reading there, they could. So you get what I'm saying though? I mean, so there's another side of this too. I think these guys are acting in good faith. I don't see the Madison City Council acting in good faith.
Can we ask that question of Brian?
Yeah.
Brian, you're still on, I'm assuming. What is your experience in bringing something like this from another municipality to the Madison City Council? Can you share your wisdom, please?
Yeah, and so it's been a while since we've brought an IGA or a cooperative plan to the city council. The council approved many of them, several of them back in the early mid 2000s. And so basically with us developing the language here, we've been working closely in close communication with our mayor to review the language, ensure that it's consistent with our mayor's thinking. And we would do the same thing if this went to the common council. We would describe the why behind this and let them decide. And really the why is what's in the first page of this proposed document, which is it provides more certainty to the city of Madison. In exchange for that certainty, provides more certainty to the town. And that's the why. And so again, I've described that the city of Madison is very proactive in working with our many municipal neighbors. We have many of them. We've found to work best when we work with them and create IGAs. It's worked way better than in cases where we do not have an IGA. It's led to better outcomes probably for everyone involved. And so there's a pretty strong why, and I would expect the council would approve it. And I would think I would expect the council would approve it. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think at this point, whatever we would do, we would want our attorney to review this.
Yes, I agree.
I propose that we give this to our attorney to review and see what he thinks and bring his formal opinion back to this board.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second
Motion by DePlace, second by Williams to forward to town's attorney for his review and recommendations.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carried. When you send this to him, you'll have to include the map. Item B, discuss and consider request to replace speed bumps on Damascus Trail with stop signs in 2022. Got the note. Is Joanne online?
So you can table this. Maybe she'll be on another meeting
Till the end of the meeting?
or to another meeting
Why?
or to the end of the meeting then.
No, I mean, well, why would we we can have an opinion on it at least, can't we? I mean,
Well, like I said, you know my opinion, so. What we don't need more kids speeding through stop signs.
well, I think, in my opinion, it's a little different than Sandpiper, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
The road's thin, it's not very wide, and we should put a stop sign at every place where somebody's gonna come out onto Damascus. It makes no
I
sense.
think it's actually, living in the area, and I drive that road a million times a day.
All that traffic.
Stop doing that.
It's you and your
Okay,
cars.
I'll drive all the way to Violet's, all the way to BB, then come back around and come into town that way. All of the streets off of Damascus, with the exception of one, on the hill as you first go up to bed are dead ends,
Yeah.
are cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
And your predecessor, Jeff Smith, and one of our previous deputies, or actually strike that, our previous police chief, when we still had there, stop signs are not to be used for speed control. They're used for traffic control, i.e. movement from cross streets and so on.
Yeah.
You know, and the only reason for putting a stop sign on Damascus somewhere is to slow people down. And living there and looking at the streets, the only reasonable intersection to put a stop sign is the intersection of Damascus and I forget the name of the street, right on Vetter's Corner. Right at
It goes
the
around in the
entrance.
circle, sort of.
Aladar?
The dead end where
Yeah.
Better lives?
What's that?
The dead end where Nashua or what?
Nashua's really short.
It is.
Yeah, right. What I'm
That's
saying
really
is,
short.
the reason why I say is all the other streets are on hills. And you want to have stop signs on hills, you know, unnecessarily so. And by that time, if you're coming on Damascus south from BB, you can have a pretty good head of steam until you arrive at the stop sign, if one were to be there on.
It's Aladar, Riva, Nashua,
It's
and
River
Ruffian.
Ridge. It goes to the, and anyway,
Yeah, Riva Ridge is the big cul-de-sac up there.
and so, and then there's only just a short route from there down to Vilas, you know, from there where you're stopping again anyway. You know, I guess my opinion, I can hear the people going over the speed bumps at my house, which, okay, it's part of life. I'm sorry. And I would be content to continue and recommend we continue with our speed bumps.
I agree.
Well, I mean, from our agenda, you could either put speed bumps in, take them out, or put stop signs in, or do nothing.
Don't change anything, you mean, or what?
Yeah, don't do anything.
Do what well,
Yeah, but I mean, the speed bumps are out now for winter. So that's not a
Make the
problem.
motion not to put them in next year.
I
Oh,
don't
I see
agree.
what you're
I
saying.
don't agree with that.
I'm just saying what your options are that you could look at.
My big thing is if we do put them in next year, we need to ask the residents who would like them in front of their residents, because I've gotten the most noise complaints this year of any, and they're almost in the exact same spot they were last year. So, except for the exception of the one by the park that we added. But then they all said, we'll just move it down the road further. Well, the guy down the road says, I don't want it in front of my house.
Yeah.
I don't,
You don't want it.
he doesn't want them. He doesn't want speed bumps, so.
Stop sign isn't gonna fix the problem.
No.
Well, I never said it would.
No,
I'm not.
No, I know you haven't.
We went how many years on Damascus with nothing?
And then
Yeah.
then we got that big raft of complaints where people are talking about the speeding.
Yep.
And the other concern that I have is next year, supposedly they're gonna start doing BB in
They're gonna
Madison.
save it.
Yeah,
So, and I don't know if
There's no
Damascus,
repave, yeah.
I don't know if Damascus is gonna become an issue.
Again,
Well, it will be short term.
It'd be a lot shorter. It's just gonna be repave.
It's still what? It took them, the county, 7 weeks to repave on TT. And so,
there's more to just repaving, though. They're gonna do the
The culverts that need
same
it,
as they did on TT, basically.
culverts that need it, yep. And they kept one lane open on TT.
Yeah,
I'm the one who brought it up, and you are right. I have to admit, you make really good points. It isn't the same, you know, there isn't a good place for stop signs, so.
and I guess,
me personally, I don't think there should be anything there.
yeah, we could put
I
it
don't
back,
understand it.
put it back to our residents. Do you want nothing or do you want speed bumps? We'll give them that choice.
And in front of your house.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
that what you're saying, Dan? That they
Yeah.
have to be willing to have them in front of
Yeah,
their
like they
house?
have
It's gotta make some logical sense.
Yeah, true.
You can't just, you can't just say, well, put them all down by the park, because
No.
that's not gonna accomplish what you want to accomplish. And what you want to accomplish is that you don't have people driving at a breakneck speed through our residential streets. And that's why they make sense to have speed bumps.
But they were just very happy about speed bumps,
Initially.
you know, and like I said, though, this is only one person, okay, that's coming to us. There's not a list of 20 people that are asking for signs.
Well, she can, if she wants to, let her go through all that trouble of getting all the residents together.
They did have one in front of their house this year. So next to their house. I mean, it wasn't right in front of it, but it was close. Actually, two. They live in between two of them, so.
Well, let her do all that legwork and she can bring this back to us. But it's not something that we have to address tonight.
She's not on the line here. is she?
Everybody to the west of her didn't want them, so
Not. Everybody to what?
the west of them didn't like them, so.
So that includes everybody that's across the street from the park,
Yeah,
where the big
basically,
concern was originally.
yeah, none of them.
And that one we just added in, right?
Yeah, and I actually removed that one early because they kind of all complained about the noise, so.
Jeez.
So what action do you want to take?
I have a couple of comments here from someone named Stephen. He said, I would suggest that no one on or near Damascus wants a stop sign and stopped cars in front of their houses. If there is any consideration of stop signs, I would suggest that professional analysis be pursued regarding the efficacy of stop signs. That he also said speed bumps have been pretty effective in slowing traffic along Damascus.
Okay, yeah.
Does he desire one in front of his house?
And what?
Does he desire one in front of his house next year?
He's on there, apparently.
Yeah, he's the one who did this by chat.
Steven, do you have one by your house right now? Are you there?
He says, I have a speed bump in front of my house.
Okay, and no complaints apparently.
Where does he live? What address?
Send them a thank you card.
Any action?
No,
No.
no. I think we just move forward and we put it on Ms. Vetter to get people to agree with her.
So Mr. Duplay, was that a motion to take no action?
To take no action and continue what we currently practice.
Is there a second? Second by Anders, to take no action. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Next item, discuss and consider approval of a 3-lot certified survey map near Gala Way for Helen Valerwick's local trust and Donald and Karen